All right, guys, back here on Wrestling Reaction with our Survivor Series reaction show live here. I know usually we do this night of the PLEs, but as I mentioned to you guys on the SmackDown reaction we did on Saturday morning, traveling for the Thanksgiving holiday here in the States, and so we decided to jump in and do this here and talk about Survivor Series. And what an interesting show it was. As always, you guys jump on in, leave your thoughts on the show, what you saw, what you liked, what you didn't like, and where do we go from here? That's always the big question, right? Coming out of these PLEs with WWE, especially entering a very fascinating stretch where you're going to have Saturday night's main event. You're going to have the Raw on Netflix debut. You've got the Royal Rumble after that. You've got Elimination Chamber. You got WrestleMania 41. It's going to be a lot of fun. But all right, guys, let's jump into it quickly. Here's what we'll do as always. And we do these live because we're not doing them night of. I'll quickly run through initial thoughts on the matches, only 5 as we know, and then we'll get into everything else that you guys want to talk about. But we will start with hello, Zoab, and jumping in here. Appreciate that. Yeah, we do have a lot to talk about here for sure. Great to see you, as always, jumping into these. And again, my apologies to all you guys for the delay doing this a day later. Probably won't be as many people in there because of that, but that's okay. We'll have fun here on this. And yeah, we'll talk about the predictions. I did go 5 of 5. This was the probably least confident I was in a WWE PLE in months. So we'll talk about kind of how it worked out. But yeah, it was a little bit surprising on my part. All right. The women's War Game match, we'll start with that, then we'll build up to the big main event. As we know, everyone wants to talk about the men's War Games match and what we get coming out of that with Roman Reigns and CM Punk. But the women's match, I've seen the reaction to that as I was watching it live. Yeah, it was probably not the most crisp match, I would say. And look, I think the women's War Games match was in a tough spot because it was the concept, right? They put it in a position where they had to do this War Games match. I just don't think this needed a War Games type scenario. We know they're going to do the 2 every year, but this felt like one that was pretty quickly put together in terms of you brought Rhea back, from the injury, those things. You had Bayley join the team pretty quickly, right? And so everything, yes, you had the relationships between everyone on each team, but I didn't think this really hit that level that maybe you would expect of a War Games match. Not to say there weren't some good things, especially towards the end. I know a lot of people have kind of agreed on that. The finish was good, where you had Io come in, and she was fantastic. They do the dueling dives off the top of the cage with her and Tiffany Stratton. And you guys know I talked about it. I'm like, are they going to do this thing here where you're going to have Liv on the mat, you're going to have Nia on the mat, Tiffany teases the cash in. I thought it would come after the match, but actually tried to do it during the match, which was a little bit interesting. I thought I didn't think they were going to actually have her cash in during the match, but I thought it would be more so afterwards. You'd kind of tease that, and you guys know I said it too. I said my prediction was that she was going to cash in at Survivor Series. Did not happen. So they're still waiting on that, and that's where, like I mentioned at the start here, right? You've got a lot of big shows coming up, whether it's Saturday night's main event, Raw on Netflix, and so forth. So they could hold off this cash in for one of those. And actually, Saturday night's main event would be a very kind of fascinating thing if they decided to do it there. But I think for now, this was a match where I told you I was not confident who was going to win. I thought that Rhea's team would win if there was going to be like a Tiffany cash in afterwards, but Rhea's team won. There wasn't a cash in. So, yeah, it was definitely one of those things where, that part kind of caught me off guard a little bit. But nonetheless, Rhea pinning Liv, this is going to continue. I know, trust me, I've seen you guys' reaction to some of that. They have to continue this until Rhea wins the title from her. And so when they decide to do that, again, I'll bring up the same thing. Do they do this at Saturday night's main event? It's a couple of weeks away. Do they wait and save this big match for the Raw on Netflix debut? I think that's a great possibility at this point. I don't think they're holding this off until WrestleMania 41. I thought maybe they would when we didn't know the timeline for Rhea's injury, but now that she's back, they have to do this, especially since she just pinned her. They have to do this match very quickly. And so it has to happen, in my opinion, within the next month. I think it will. I think Rhea wins the title, and we move on to whatever's next at that point. So we'll see what happens there. Yeah, everything else with this match I thought was it was just there. It just was not probably, again, to the level that most people expected. Even like teasing some of the relationships, you guys know we talked about that in the prediction video. They really didn't go too hard into those either. They did a couple things in there, the Bayley Io Sky thing, and commentary was pushing a lot of it with the Bianca questioning her teammates if one of them attacked Jade and all this stuff. But you never really got, I think, to that next sort of level type stuff where all of a sudden that tension goes to just such a big high that the crowd's buzzing and all that on either team. You'd have Candice LeRae go around Tiffany Stratton, sort of the same scenario, although a little bit different than what you saw in the men's match with Punk, holding Reigns back and going in first and all that into the cage. And so, again, this was not surprised that Rhea's team won, but also thought this left a little bit to be desired, especially not having a cash in. And I just didn't think, again, it was probably the easiest match to pull off, all things considered, with the way they kind of played it out. And look, Nia being the first entrant in, that was a tough spot for her, no question. And yeah, I just didn't think this was probably, again, to the level that you would have expected this War Games match maybe to get to. But like I said, maybe that was a little unrealistic, just given the fact that this was probably, thrown together a little bit quicker than maybe I thought it would. Because that's what we said. All this was sort of a matter of, was Rhea going to be available? And remember, we were having that conversation weeks ago. Once you realized she was, well, of course they're going to do the Women's War Games match with Rhea in there. Yep, I agree, guys, on the, Zoe, I just thought Tiffany, it was a great opportunity. I thought you could have had that big moment there, but nonetheless, like I said, they got time to move this forward on that. So, all right, we're going to jump into the next thing. We'll get back to, like I said, guys, we'll circle back around to your thoughts on these matches and stuff. But shout out to everybody who's jumping in. Hello, Russell. Way to jump in. Like I said, we're doing this kind of impromptu style here. What's up, Mario? Yeah, I appreciate you guys jumping in. This was kind of on short notice, but I figured we do this live, right? Let's just do it live. Why not? Since we didn't get a chance to do it there last night after the show. So appreciate you guys hopping in. All right. So because it brought up in the comments, let's talk about LA Knight and Shinsuke Nakamura. I had that feeling. I'm like, they got to do something different here, because you cannot just have another LA Knight championship win. I just don't think you can have him all right, he comes out, he beats Nakamura clean, on to the next, right? This title reign needed something extra. And it's like the title reign actually needed to be gone. Like they needed for him to lose the title to hit that next gear, I think, with LA Knight. And so this is much more interesting to me. I said it, I picked Nakamura to win just because it felt like the moment that you do something surprising. You kind of stun people, and I think it was the right call. Was it the best match on the card? Probably not. I think the best match on the card, there were two that I think were pretty close. But I still felt like this was the situation where you had to give LA Knight something different to do. We mentioned it. The reign has not exactly been the most notable to this point. The stuff with Carmelo and Andrade, while they both did a great job, I think, at various points during that 7-match series, you had the triple threat match. I was high on Carmelo, thought he should probably be the one to take the title. But once you realized they were going to do this new look Shinsuke Nakamura and start this whole kind of evolution of his character, you just felt like this was a great chance to have him come out and just, bring the darkness to LA Knight, right? And that's what they did here. And I liked it. I thought that was the right move. I'm not saying that I think Nakamura should have a 6-month title reign or anything, but this now forces LA Knight to not just do the same thing he's always done, right? He's gotten over with his mic skills, the popularity has skyrocketed because of that. But yes, as it's mentioned here, the evil Nakamura. Now LA Knight has met the evil, right? And what's he going to do to try to get this championship back? But it also freshens up the idea that maybe it's not as simple as LA Knight just going to, beat Nakamura a month from now and win the championship back. Maybe you start to have some interesting stuff where you can have Nakamura and Andrade, of course, who you just beat on SmackDown. Nakamura, Carmelo, you've got AJ Styles. We mentioned that. I have a feeling the AJ Styles injury definitely derailed whatever plans they had initially to maybe get back to LA Knight versus AJ Styles for that United States title. And so they decided to go this route with Nakamura. But I am immediately more interested now than I was before. And I think that just shows you that it's not necessarily LA Knight's fault. It's just a matter of your title reign is as good as your opponents, basically, and your challengers. Whoever faces you, how you build up, the feuds and such. And I just don't think it kind of, after SummerSlam really was there. It felt at times like, what one of his most recent matches was against Santos Escobar. Nothing against Escobar, but he was not built up to the level where you thought he was going to beat LA Knight for the United States title. Nakamura, yes, it was very quickly thrown together. This thing came together pretty quick in the past couple weeks, but you did feel like this was at least something different. And I told you guys on the SmackDown thing, when this guy got new theme music, it's on at that point. I'm like, ears perked up a little bit, and I'm thinking, uh-oh, new theme music, heading into a big match, title match. This may be the time. So sure enough, I love the entrance for Nakamura at Survivor Series. I like what they've done with the theme. Maybe a little bit too catchy again, where people are going to, really get into it. But again, I know there's a lot of LA Knight fans out there. I just thought this was the right move. Nakamura winning, not necessarily just for Nakamura, but for LA Knight too. I think it was something where now we need to see what he can do when now his back's against the wall. He wasn't on his game. Nakamura took him off his game. What's he going to do in the rematch, which they will have at some point, and can he win the championship back? I think LA Knight's this kind of person that doesn't need a title, but we'll see. All right, guys, that was thoughts on Nakamura and LA Knight. Again, if you notice him having some technical issues, but again, it is what it is. We're just trying to get a show in after all the travel and everything this weekend, so I just want to make sure I get you guys a show. All right, another great segue here. The triple threat. I thought this could be the show stealer, and my goodness, these three, as you would expect, just put on. I mean, they put on a show here. Like, they did such a fantastic job, and of course, Bron Breakker retains against Sheamus and Ludwig Kaiser, and I think this is one where we knew Breakker was going to retain, right? But it was all about how are you going to elevate Kaiser? How are you going to sort of elevate the idea that Sheamus could win that championship, the one that has still eluded him his entire career, the Intercontinental title. And you hit all the marks here. Like, you hit everything you needed to hit. Breakker looked fantastic in this match. Kaiser looked great. And Sheamus, like, I'm sure you guys saw it. Like, the crowd reaction. They were wanting Sheamus to finally get this championship. They were behind him. They wanted him to get this opportunity. And then it felt like you had a couple of those huge near falls, right? Where, you've got, I don't even remember the exact sequences, but, Breakker breaks up one. I think Kaiser broke up another. There were just several near falls that Sheamus had. And Listen, I love the main event, but if you're talking just your traditional match, and again, there's only 5 on the card, I thought this was about as good as it gets in terms of what it needed to be. Like, this was not going to be a 30-minute match. This was going to be a hard-hitting, triple threat, sprint type match, and I agree with Percy G here. Like, I thought this could certainly be considered the match of the night, just in terms of what they did in that match. And, War Games is different in terms of the main event. That was more of your kind of storyline driven match. This was just like pure athleticism from Bron Breakker and just the hard hitting style. It was really good. So I look ahead and I think, where is Bron Breakker going to be a year from now, right? Like 2 years from now. I mean, he is just so ridiculously good. And I think the same thing about Kaiser, honestly, now, where it's different. Like, they're different, superstars in terms of their approach, but I think Kaiser, we've said it, guys. I mean, we've talked about him over the past couple months. The stuff they're doing with Gunther, they're clearly building Kaiser up for something big too. And, for them, I would think he feels like, a future world champion type guy. And, we're going to play this up. I'm sure on Raw, you're going to have something between Gunther and Kaiser. Gunther retains the title. We'll get to that in a second. Kaiser comes up short again. And so what are the interactions you're going to have there, on that? And I think that's something that could be pretty compelling moving forward. But Breakker, just an absolute beast. And yeah, I mean, how can you not be impressed with these guys? And like I said, I think, the young guys are going to get the focus with Sheamus and Kaiser, with Breakker and Kaiser. But I think that Sheamus winning that championship, we've got a lot of big stuff coming up in 2025, right? We got the John Cena retirement tours about to kick off. You got a lot of big matches out there. But I think Sheamus, getting close to that Intercontinental Championship, that's another fun thing that I think they can really build on, next year probably, and see if he's finally going to win that championship. I think that probably needs to be something that comes towards maybe the end of his career, and it doesn't look like Sheamus is slowing down anytime soon. It's remarkable to think how long Sheamus has been at WWE, right? And yeah, I mean, he just continues to, I think, do his thing. It is pretty fantastic what he can still do, for sure. So great match here. Again, I would not blame anyone if they wanted to say that this was the match of the night, because this was tremendous. So yeah, I'm with Zoe here. Like, do it again. Just run it back one more time. And and that's the thing too, right? You're still going to get another match between Sheamus and Kaiser. We know that based on how they did this here. And Breakker, there's plenty of people for him to work with, especially now that we see this whole brand split thing. I mean, I think we're starting to understand it's very fluid in terms of what they're going to be able to just have people jumping back and forth, because I'm sure you guys have saw it too. I mean, it seems pretty clear now we're getting 3 hours for Raw and 3 hours for SmackDown starting in January. Now, I will tell you, that could alter the reaction shows a little bit. Doing 3 hours of each week, I may get a little bit behind, but still, I think we are in a situation where we're going to get 3 hours of each, and you need big matches, right? You need to have a lot of matches, more so building up, the amount of time that's allotted now. And so, yeah, I mean, you're going to get more of these kind of things. Breakker's going to have a lot of people to work with. Kaiser, curious to see what he does in 2025. And again, the Sheamus thing is still out there. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, look, Beast Mode brings up a good point here. Bron Breakker going to be a Paul Heyman guy. Yeah, if I'm Paul Heyman, I'm keeping an eye on Roman Reigns and CM Punk. But I got something going on with Bron Breakker over there because he is the future, without a doubt. All right, and then we got Gunther and Damian Priest. Again, there was really no question as to who was going to win this match. Gunther retains the title, and I'm sure no one's surprised by that. They really worked on, targeting the shoulder of Priest. That was really that's what you expect from a Gunther match at this point. He tried to dissect the body part, and that's what he did here. It was all about the shoulder for Damian Priest, and I like the way they worked the match. Thought it was a good match. I said coming in, I thought the toughest thing about this match was not going to be where they're going to deliver. It was going to be, can you really sell people on Priest winning the title? And I just think, I don't think he ever got there, and that's, nothing against Priest, nothing against Gunther. It's just, it was going to be a hard sell because you knew this title reign was going to continue for Gunther, and really the biggest question was going to be, is Finn Balor going to get involved? Well, he got involved, and so it does seem like we're getting to one more match between Priest and Balor. And again, we talked about the stuff earlier with Rhea. You're going to get another match between Rhea and Liv. You're going to probably get another match between Priest and Balor. And I think for some people, thought maybe, going back to Bad Blood, which you didn't get a finish for Rhea and Liv, but, Priest beating Balor, those kind of things. Yeah, I mean, you just wonder, when are those feuds going to be over? And you kind of have the official split. But you've seen with Triple H, that's something where they just kind of keep this going, right? Like these feuds don't ever really end. They just kind of, bounce in and bounce out to different things. So, yeah, I didn't love the finish either. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't love Balor getting involved because, I mean, there's a couple reasons why you could, point to why he did it, right? One, it's just to basically not beat Priest clean, which I think Priest could have been okay getting beaten clean here by Gunther in the rematch, but they didn't want to do it. Clearly, they wanted to keep this going as well. But I also heard some other people bring up the fact that maybe this was also something where you keep the story going with Gunther and the confidence, right? He didn't beat Priest clean here. He had Balor interfere, which, of course, Gunther knocked his head off afterwards. But, I think that is something, too, where you wanted to keep the thread going with Gunther, kind of having that self-confidence shaken a little bit. And he didn't beat Priest clean here. Yes, he may have choked him out and all that, but it only came after Balor got involved. So you can play that up. You can do something between Gunther and Balor now. And, as we said, too, I think in this area especially, like, there's not as hard of that face-heel divide. Triple H has no problem doing a Gunther-Finn Balor match if it makes sense for the circumstances. And so I think that's probably, what you're looking at. And yeah, Zoa brings up here, could you do this triple threat match where you put them both in there? And, is Dominic going to get his match at some point too as well for the World Championship? We'll see. But, yeah, I think this was pretty predictable. And, yeah, this actually may have been the most predictable thing on the card, not just for the winner, but I think you did pretty much have a pretty good idea that, Balor was going to get involved here, and it seemed that way. So, also shout out to Irish Sam jumping in here. Appreciate it, Irish Sam. And, yes, always enjoy talking to you. I know, I was going to say, you got to go to bed. You're in Ireland. You got to go to bed over there. But I appreciate you jumping in, us doing this live show here in the States. I know it's a little late your time. So, hop on in the next time we do this, Irish Sam, and we'll talk soon. So, all right. Let's get to the main event. I know that's why a lot of you guys are here. We want to talk about what happened with the men's War Games match. It was CM Punk and Roman Reigns successfully teaming up to get the win over Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, and Bronson Reed. And there was a lot coming out of this. We know if we start with the injuries, it does seem like that Jey Uso, broken toe, Bronson Reed, a bit of an injury coming off of the tsunami off the top of the cage. So we don't know exactly what the timeline is going to be for either of those guys. I know Triple H used the questionable tag for Bronson Reed in the coming weeks based on what happened with the dive there. But, I mean, again, this is kind of, when you have these matches, you have the platforms up there, somebody's going to take a dive here, and that's what happened. I thought, Jimmy, I really thought Jimmy had a really good match here. I mean, he did some very impressive things, not just the splash off the top to take Jacob Fatu out of things at the end, but he did the whisper in the wind where everybody keeps pointing out. Jimmy looked as shocked as anybody that he just absolutely nailed that thing. But yeah, I thought Jimmy, had a good match. And look, this was all about the tension, as we said. And I know, The Rock doesn't show up or anything like that. And we mentioned going in. I always say, if The Rock's available, you're going to put him on the show no matter what. But if you really go back and think about it, there's still a long way to go, I think, in terms of the story that they're going to tell here. We are still a little bit of ways away from WrestleMania 41. And in all honesty, I think having The Rock make his return on the Raw on Netflix is probably the smarter move, just because, if you do it here, then if he's on the Raw on Netflix, it doesn't feel as big. It's The Rock still, don't get me wrong, but if he makes his return after what we saw at Bad Blood, and the first time we see The Rock afterwards is Raw on Netflix, that gives you something big you can build towards. And so I have a feeling that's what they'll do. They'll probably announce it ahead of time. Rock's going to be there. What's he going to do? That's one of the big hooks for getting people to Netflix, on January 6th or whatever it is. So not shocked in that regard for The Rock not showing up, because this was, again, really all about CM Punk and Roman Reigns. And they had pretty much told us that, right, over the past 10 days or whatever it had been, since Paul Heyman returned, brought Punk with him. They did the cinematic sit-down on SmackDown, and it was always going to be a question of what happens next with Roman and Punk, and what happens with Punk and Heyman, right? And Punk said, he's going to be coming for the favor when he needs it. And you guys can keep giving, your predictions on what you think this favor is going to be that CM Punk wants from Paul Heyman. But that tension and sort of that dynamic with their relationship is going to keep playing within the story of Roman Reigns, right? We talked about this kind of being the new arc of Roman Reigns, where it's the ultimate kind of revenge tour for him, where he's righting wrongs, he's doing all these things, he's getting back at Solo, still has to get the Ulafala, which, by the way, that was clearly the hard sell coming out of this match, is we're far from done here because Roman has to get the Ulafala back. Solo is still the tribal chief, because he has that. And so, clearly that's the next step, which means, in my opinion, you clearly have to do Roman Reigns versus Solo one-on-one, even though we all probably have a really good idea of who is going to win that match. That is probably the next step. And in all honesty, that's probably the step that gets you to The Rock, somehow, some way, right? If Roman beats Solo, we've said, and remember, Roman pins Solo here in this match. Now, that's the thing. We said that Solo has come up short in these big matches time and time again. We go all the way back to SummerSlam, right? And other big matches, Solo's had the opportunity, and he's lost. The steel cage match against Cody on SmackDown. And it's like each time he's had this chance to put away Roman Reigns or put away, Cody for good, bring the championship back to his version of the Bloodline. Solo has failed. And I keep thinking that that's probably going to be what, precipitates something with The Rock in the future. Now, I know what people have also pointed out, The Rock has made it clear that he's coming for Cody before he does anything else. And so that's something else you have to consider. Like, how far away are we from doing the thing with The Rock and Roman? And all it's going to depend on is which match is going to main event WrestleMania 41 night 2, right? Is it going to be the triple threat match? Is it going to be The Rock versus Cody? Is it going to be The Rock versus Roman? We just don't know. And look, I think we also have to consider, potentially, I think there's lower chance of this, but I do think we also have to consider, what does the WrestleMania 41 card look like if The Rock's not on it? I think he's going to be on it. Like, I would feel pretty confident about that, because if you're going to bring him out on Netflix, surely you're going to build him up for doing something at WrestleMania 41. Now, we know there was a report out there that he wasn't scheduled to be there, but I just am not buying it as of right now until we know for sure that that's not going to happen. But there's a lot of different scenarios that can play out here. And so I think the next step is, when do they do Roman versus Solo for the Ulafala? I think that is what, and look, maybe that's Netflix. Maybe they do it on the Raw on Netflix, right? Because you're not getting to Roman versus CM Punk right now anytime soon. We know Punk, WWE announced it today actually, that Punk's going to kick off Raw tomorrow night. So what's Punk going to do when he kicks off Raw? I don't think you're immediately coming into something with Reigns here. They kind of let that be after this match. The one-time team up, we move on to something else. I think Reigns will stay aligned, probably with Jey and Jimmy and Sami in some way, shape, or form over the next little bit. But what's Punk do next? Does he immediately go to Gunther, right? Does it go to Gunther somehow for the championship? Is that Is he going to declare once again, just as he did when he thought he was done with Drew McIntyre? Does Punk declare, hey, I said it before, I'm coming for the World Championship? And maybe you start to put something in motion for that, potentially. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot that you can do coming out of this, but the story is still going to be the future dream match is Punk and Reigns at some point, with Heyman involved somewhere along the way. Whenever Punk asks for the favor, what's Reigns going to think and all that? And now I think you wait and see when they do Reigns versus Solo. That seems like the next logical step because it is all about the Ulafala. And I wouldn't have said that, but like Michael Cole made it very clear after the match. They made sure to push that this thing is not over because it's all about getting that Ulafala put around your neck for you to be the tribal chief. And Reigns does not have that. He's not the tribal chief right now in terms of the story that they're telling. And so he's got to get that back from Solo. And that's where we see what happens on that. So, yeah, I thought this was a tremendous match. Again, you could say this is the match of the night. I'd have no issue with that. It was different than the triple threat match. But, and by the way, I forgot to bring this up. Yeah, we talk about all this, and we didn't even bring up Rollins, right? So Rollins, could somehow, Punk's opening up Raw tomorrow night. Does Rollins start to get back into the picture quickly? Because you do think, and we made this prediction, right? I think if you go back to the predictions we did right after WrestleMania 40, I'm like, you can see WWE wanting to get to Punk versus Rollins next year at WrestleMania 41 because they didn't get a chance to do it this year because of the injury. So, yeah, I completely just blanked on that. But sure, absolutely. They're going to get to that. That's the next big thing for CM Punk. I feel like, McIntyre's going to come back soon too. But I don't think you go back to Punk and McIntyre anytime soon. They could interact in the Rumble or something like that, but you're not getting back to that for now. So Punk could make it, let's say he takes aim at Gunther tomorrow night on Raw. But it's Rollins, who does not allow that to happen because Rollins is pissed because Punk just, did what Rollins said he'd never do, and that's team with Roman Reigns. So, we thought Rollins could show up last night, right? We thought he could show up and be, kind of in that position. So, was not. So, they decided to wait on that. So, that's definitely something that they can get to for sure. So, all right. What else do we want to get to here? I guess let's jump into your questions now because I know a lot of guys are talking about some interesting stuff in the chat. Yeah, I appreciate you guys jumping in too. If you're jumping in late here, you can go back and watch the replay. Again, we decided to do this live. We didn't get a chance to do it last night. But I appreciate you guys jumping in for sure. By the way, El Jefe says here too, long-term story, because that was when, remember, the Punk and the Shield were, interacting with each other back in the day. And that was all kind of leading to that with Punk having the relationship with the Shield and all that. So, that's going to make Punk and Rollins even better because you can kind of go back to that history there and bring kind of that up of what they're going to do. And so Kevin asked here a few minutes ago, thoughts on what the favor is. What's next for Reigns? Yeah, the favor, we talked about that on SmackDown. It's a great question. It's sort of one of those just so vague things that they bring into this to where you're just like, it could be anything, right? It could be Heyman, having him help somehow with getting back at The Rock or getting a championship, the world championship. He wants Heyman to manage him, basically, his way to the championship. Maybe it's something with John Cena. Maybe it can be anything, right? So I like the fact that they've left this very vague because they've given us no hints as to what this favor is. It's just simply a favor, which is as simple as it gets, right? And like I said, it could be anything. We could sit here and come up with all sorts of ideas, but you would think it somehow involves a championship, a world title of some sort. But there's a lot of other things, it could be because of the history between CM Punk and Paul Heyman. So, it could be a lot of things for sure. So, Kevin, you also asked, when does Lesnar come back? I know I saw people talking about Lesnar coming back, for Survivor Series. I just don't think I ever mentioned his name one time because I just never thought it was going to happen. I just don't see Brock Lesnar coming back anytime soon. That's just my opinion, for various reasons. But I don't see him returning anytime soon. Now, I say that, right? He may show up tomorrow night on Raw. He may show up on Netflix, whatever, but I feel like it's probably not happening right now. They have enough that I don't think they necessarily need Brock Lesnar to come back right now. But all right. So, Will brought up, he doesn't think The Rock versus Roman should happen anymore. Roman isn't the head of the table anymore. Yeah, well, I think that's where, again, the Ulafala thing can come into where if somehow Roman gets that back, right, that's going to piss off The Rock. Because, we've never really had, if you think about it, it's all just sort of been, body language and different things that have been said, or, this guy's not been in here, but this guy, it just sort of, it's been pretty silent with Rock and Roman. We haven't really got that official split yet, if you think about it, between those two. And so you've still got to kind of get into that a bit if you're going to do that match. And so, yeah, I mean, and I've said too, I think the issue with The Rock versus Roman or The Rock versus Cody, if you're doing that as the main event of WrestleMania Night 2, people are expecting a spectacle, right? They're expecting a 25 to 30 minute main event. And is The Rock going to be able to do a 25 to 30 minute main event? And that's why I said I could see the reasons why the triple threat would be appealing, because The Rock can, he can lay out for 2 or 3 minutes at a time and just let Cody and Roman do their thing. So, yeah, I'm not sure about that. The more I think about it, it's huge to do the match, but is The Rock going to be ready for a one-on-one singles match that can't go 10 minutes, right? It's got to go a little time. Now, they can do no DQ or whatever, and you can have interference just like we had at WrestleMania 40 and all that, but, we'll see. So, all right, Kevin, when does The Rock come back? Did he kick Solo out? I'm going to say my prediction for The Rock is still going to be, I think they want to save him for Netflix a month from now. They'll probably hype it up, make sure everyone knows he's going to be there, and then that's where we get the next step in this whole thing. And I think eventually you do have to have The Rock, and this is where, can he kick Solo out? Sure he can, but I think it's going to be more about The Rock kind of molding his version of the Bloodline here, and that's where Jacob Fatu turning on Solo. Eventually, that's a big match too, right? And right now, it may not feel that way because people have been down on Solo and all this, but I keep telling you guys, I think Solo has done a much better job over the past couple months. Initially, yes, there were some struggles in terms of this role, and he was never going to be Roman Reigns. He's still not Roman Reigns, but I don't think Solo's got enough credit for kind of how he's progressed in this role a bit, and I think he's become a little more lovable, if that makes sense. Solo just seems like the guy that is so, he's kind of got that confidence that sometimes you're like, okay, Solo, come on, man, you can't really believe that, right? But you're like, all right, but I kind of respect the fact that he thinks that he can do that, or he thinks that he is this. And, so I think Solo will be fine. He's going to be okay. People will be cheering him probably not a month from now, a year from now, but we'll see. So we'll see what happens there. But, all right, I'm going to keep going down the comments here. I'm going to catch up on some of these things here. And as I keep telling you guys, if you're joining in for the first time, hit the subscribe button. Always helps out here on the channel. Hit the like button, too, if you're in here. Appreciate you watching. Got 100+ of you watching here. It's pretty good for, me just announcing this on the fly and deciding to do it. So, and I have mentioned, too, guys, I've got some new content coming here on the channel. We're going to start doing some new things. We're going to start adding some content for our members. So if you want to join the membership tier, $3.99 a month, you can do that. Just a donation tier. Lets me do more videos, more live streams for you guys. That's all it is. But I will start doing some members-only content. And something else. Some of you guys have brought this up before, and I just want to give you a quick preview. So a lot of people sometimes say, man, Blake, your background is so bare back here. There's nothing back there. Well, guys, I've heard your comments, and we're about to really spice this thing up back here. So be ready. I say within the next week or two, you're going to see a completely new background. We're gonna really kick this thing up a little bit. So presentation, sometimes I just hit the record button and I just talk, but I know we probably need a little bit better presentation at times. So I'm going to try to do that for you guys here in the next little bit. So, all right, let's get to some other comments here. Here's an interesting one. So the favors Punk wanting to main event WrestleMania. That's a good call there. I like that one. And Heyman keeps Roman from winning the Rumble, so Punk can win instead. Yeah. See, and that's where I think you can add The Rock in there somewhere because The Rock has been the reason why Punk has not been able to main event WrestleMania in the past. And so if you bring that into it, I think kind of having the wise man pull the strings to try to figure out a way to get Punk that WrestleMania main event. And two, remember when Punk came in initially? We're like, how long is it going to be before they have to, they turn Punk heel or something, right? Punk was doing some of those initial heel tendencies or whatever. I don't think we're there, and I just don't think it'd be a smart move at all. But I do wonder what that timeline looks like. Is he a heel a year from now, right? And I mean, it's a really interesting question because I think with Paul Heyman too. Paul Heyman is best whenever he is just the mastermind heel coming up with all these concoctions and plans that are just not that moral, right? And so I think you want to get Heyman back into that natural role at some point, but who is he aligned with? All those things. I think those are the really good questions that we have coming out of this. So, all right. So let's see what we got here. Calvin asks, what do you think about Punk winning the title at Saturday Night? I know he said Saturday Night Live. I know you mean Saturday Night's main event from Gunther. And that sets up Punk and Rollins for WrestleMania 41. Yeah. See, that's the thing, too. I think you've got two scenarios here. Could you do Punk versus Rollins for the title at WrestleMania 41? Sure you can. But I also think that if you're going to go the route of wanting John Cena to challenge for the world title, I mean, look, unless they decide they want to do Cody versus Cena, which I just don't know if they're going to do that. I'm not sure that's the way to go necessarily, but I will say I feel like that is probably an option. Then I think, Gunther versus Cena, Punk versus Rollins, not for the title, and then whoever wins Punk versus Rollins, then you start to build that program for SummerSlam, I would say next year maybe. But I think this too, right? The longer you hold off on Punk, potentially winning the world title, you're taking a risk there. I mean, because of the injury history and just, age and those kind of things. So I think that's something you have to think about too. So I don't see Punk winning the title anytime soon, and I mean that within the next, couple of weeks or 2 months or anything, but I do think it's an interesting thought because they're playing into this Gunther confidence thing, and I wonder what that means, like long term. Are they going to take the title off of him sooner than we think, or does he just keep it until WrestleMania 41 and maybe he gets John Cena as his challenger there? So I think those are all potential options there on that. So, all right, I'm going to try to catch up to some of this, but Zoa had a comment too on the favor. Roman gets drafted to Raw, becomes a World Heavyweight Champion. Punk gets to skip the line past Paul. Yeah, because Punk owes a favor. Yeah. I mean, I think just maybe, again, dangling a favor that maybe even Punk doesn't even know what it is right now. But basically, Punk has an idea of what it could be if certain things happen, and then we get to it at some point. Because, I mean, again, they left it there. Like, it's not something they want you thinking about right now necessarily. It's sort of like, all right, Punk told Heyman, I'm coming for it when I'm ready, but now's not the time, right? You got a little bit longer to go to get to that. So, yeah, hey, appreciate you joining in. Yeah, I, again, always appreciate you guys and the support here of the channel. So, hope you jump in for sure soon. So, all right, do I think the new Bloodline will turn on Solo? I think that it just seems inevitable at this point. You've got, Jacob Fatu, who has been doing the, the over-the-top exaggeration, I love you, Solo. That's got to mean something. Like, it's going to, he's going to turn on him eventually. Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa, they're just guns for hire, right? They have no allegiance here. They were just guys who, and that's was kind of the story, remember? I mean, Solo was bringing in the mercenaries that no one else would touch, but Solo decided to do it, and little did he know, and remember, we did the video too, like where Jey is almost warning Solo, these guys are going to turn on you. So they are going to turn on Solo. When that happens, I think it's a much more of a mystery right now than it was before, and maybe that comes, like I said, if Solo loses the Ulafala, then that becomes the time where Solo no longer has the power. And so, will the mercenaries, who are all about just latching themselves to the person with the most power, now I'm not saying they're going to go join Roman Reigns, but it's a time for a noob guy, and that's where The Rock could come in, right? And those kind of things. So, yes, Solo's going to get turned on, I think, probably as soon as he loses the Ulafala, whenever that happens. So, yeah, so we'll see. But, yeah, Stuart says here, Rock back at Netflix debut. Yeah, you would think they've got a lot in store. I mean, truly, and sometimes we like to exaggerate. We know that, right? This truly is probably the biggest episode of Raw ever. And I say that, I mean, knowing how, the longest running episodic, weekly, whatever they used to use, right? The biggest Raw they've ever done, just in terms of the magnitude of what this means. And so, yes, like they will have lots of surprises. They will announce some stuff ahead of time to make sure people get there. We know Cena's going to be there. They'll have all the big current stars there. Cody will be there. Reigns will be there. Punk will be there. Keep going down the line. And again, I fully expect The Rock to be there. Who else? Do they get Austin? There's all kinds of stuff. Taker, like just they're going to bring everybody they can in for that show. So that will be, my guess is we'll probably do a live show after that because that is going to be such a big show that everybody will be talking about all sorts of stuff coming out of that one. So, yeah, as Mario said here, yeah, I agree with you. I think that's a great call. WrestleMania main event. Paul's going to work his magic, get Punk in the main event, and yeah, here we go. So, hey, Zoa, by the way, I know you probably jumped off. This is a couple minutes, but you're signed up for a WWE tryout? Come on, man. That is fantastic. All right, you gotta give us an update on how this goes, all right? Because if we get the first official WWE signed superstar, hear from the comments, all right? We want to be able to tout that. We want to market that as a selling point here. If you join the comments here at Wrestling Reaction, if you join the videos, the live streams, you too can have a chance to work as a WWE superstar. So there we go. So shout out to Will. Hey, I appreciate the comments, Will. Yeah, I guess I know my stuff. I think about this too much probably at times, but hey, I love it. I've been watching it for decades upon decades, and that's why you guys probably gonna laugh at me, but like I keep saying, I'm like, I want to do so much like retro stuff. There's just so many hours of current WWE stuff that like I have to talk about. I'd love to go back and I wish we could have done multiple like Survivor Series, watch alongs or something with you guys to kind of signify. It's just I love the retro stuff. Like I'll turn on a random episode of Raw from 1997, or I'll go back and watch Survivor Series 1989, or it just all kinds of stuff. So yeah, but anyways, all right. Let's get to what we have here. Night 1 main event, Gunther versus Cena versus Rollins versus Punk. Okay. Gunther retains and solidifies dominance. Cena gets the main event, his last WrestleMania. And Punk gets his first main event. Yeah, I mean, that's and we said this too, like they have there's so many big matches you can do. And I think it's just one of those where, to me, Cena is the wild card because I told you guys initially, if you didn't watch the SmackDown reaction on yesterday, I said that I thought that initially my expectation was, okay, Cena winning the Rumble makes a lot of sense. But I also said, well, I say that. I think you want Cena to go through as many sort of trials and tribulations as you can before you give him the world title chance. And that could mean Cena, it comes down to the final two. Cena loses to somebody else in the Rumble, which I don't have a great idea yet who that is. But, maybe it is Punk. Cena, loses there. Or maybe you do Cena and Orton as the final two. Orton wins, Orton versus Cody. Like, right? You do something like that. But Cena then has to go through the Elimination Chamber. The most destructive match in WWE history, or whatever the tagline is they use. And then, maybe Cena gets a chance at the title there. Because it is his last WrestleMania. And I would think, knowing that it's John Cena's last WrestleMania, he is going to main event one of those nights. And, I would think that's night 1, but it all depends on The Rock. Because if The Rock's there, he's main event night 2. We know that for sure. But we just don't know exactly. So, yeah, so we'll see what happens there. All right, I'm going to keep going here. Yeah, Robert, we brought up a minute ago about the Punk opening up Raw. Yeah, I mean, he's going to have something to say. I would think he's completely setting his sights now back on the World Championship. Remember last time he did that, Drew McIntyre took him out. Could this time around it be Seth Rollins that takes him out? And we just keep delaying Punk having a chance for this world title until you're building and building and building. He finally gets the opportunity. You go from there. So, yes, as Greg says, good luck, Zoa. Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, look, this is the $1 million question here. When will Tiffany cash in on Nia? I don't know. Like, I'm sorry. I no longer know. I thought this was a great chance to do it at Survivor Series. I mean, you want to do it on a big... I don't think you just want to do it on a random Raw or SmackDown, which, you could say, well, why not, right? But I think it's probably either Saturday night's main event or it's the Raw on Netflix at this point. And I know you're thinking, well, it's a SmackDown thing. But I don't think they care on the Raw on Netflix. I think they will put anything and everything they can on that show. And, Nia could be there for some reason. Liv could be there for some reason. Or maybe Rhea, whoever. You can do the tease there. But I think we're getting closer to where she has to cash in. Because I think the Nia world title reign, I said it. She had lost multiple times. She'd been pinned multiple times by other people. Pinned by what? Bayley, I think, was one. Or was it Naomi? I don't remember exactly. And then you had, the stuff with Liv Morgan. She lost to the Crown Jewel. So I think Tiffany's got to win the title soon. So hopefully sooner rather than later. But, all right. So let's see what else we got here. I know I'm probably missing some of your comments here, guys. But I will try to catch back up on these. But, all right. Let's see. Zoa said here, too, by the way. Jacob Fatu takeover would be the best option, which will set up Fatu versus Reigns, who will follow, and possibly the first one-on-one. Yeah, remember, too, I mean, that's still a match that's out there. Like, we haven't talked about that one as much lately, but they still probably want to do that. I mean, Jacob Fatu, we didn't really mention it in the War Games match, but, I mean, once again, when he came down and he was selling, the knee, I immediately thought back to SummerSlam. I'm like, and I know there's a report out there that I don't know the validity of whether he actually got injured, like minor injury or something, but I mean, this guy is just he's just fantastic in terms of how he can sell. And, all the stuff they've been doing, they made him look dominant here again. They had to take him out by having Jimmy come off the top of the, cage and put him through a table. That was the only way to keep this guy out of this match. And so, yeah, Roman versus Jacob Fatu is still a big one-on-one match too. And so, yeah, like Jacob Fatu is going to play a role in the next evolution of the Bloodline. We just don't know what that means for Solo, what it means for The Rock, and all that. So, yeah, we'll see. Do you think we're going to get our Attitude Era on Raw with Netflix not having to make everything PG? Yeah, I think you'll get a lot more. I mean, is it going to go full Attitude Era? No, but I think you'll get a lot more kind of stuff where we won't have to worry about the bleeping probably. We won't have to worry about the blacked out screens or anything that we usually get on this stuff, which can be annoying sometimes. So yeah, I think you'll get a lot more kind of reality-based stuff. We're already getting that, but I think they can kind of go a little bit further with it being on Netflix. Because remember too, I mean, they're still catering to the same audience. It's just a bigger audience where you don't know which of those demographics you're going to pull in, right? Are you going to pull in more children? Are you going to pull in more, adults, whatever, 18 to 39? I'm not sure. So I wouldn't expect a huge change. I think it's just going to be more of what they've already done. But you just may be able to get away with certain things that you could not get away with, in terms of the stories and different angles and that kind of stuff, on Raw or SmackDown now. You're going to be able to get away from that, or excuse me, just for Raw, because that's just going to be on Netflix. But I think you'll get more of that kind of stuff. So we'll see. But all right, so your thought here, this comment, more closer we get to Mania, thinking they're going to do Rock and Cody. Yeah, they haven't really pulled away from the idea of it being Rock and Cody. And I remember we talked about, like, even the documentary they did after WrestleMania 4, the behind the curtain thing, right? They left that documentary at the very end. They were pointing you in every possible direction they could to tell you it's going to be Rock versus Cody. Rock comes back at Bad Blood. Cody's in the ring with Roman Reigns, but Cody's still in the ring there, right? And so Rock's, who's he talking to? That was kind of the mystery. Who is he looking at when he's doing the throat slash and the numbers and all this other stuff? So I think they still want to do that match because they set it up, right? Go all the way back to WrestleMania 40, right? Rock pins Cody. The night after WrestleMania, they do the face-to-face, which, it's kind of your vintage Rock John Cena type thing, where they basically let you know a year in advance this is what they're going to do. They haven't been as, forthcoming on this one. They just flat out say it, but they've also not done anything to make you think it's not going to happen. And so I can see it. It's a big match. And so, I mean, that's where, that would be a fun one if they decided to do that. So, all right, let's see what else we got here. So, Zoa asked as well, this is a good one here, can we acknowledge the women's IC and US champions, and could that be when Tiffany cashes in? So, yeah, I mean, I think, I still think the most impactful thing is her cashing in on Nia, right? I mean, that we would all probably agree with that. But I am curious how they're going to keep going with the the Intercontinental U.S. Championship runs on the women's side, just because, like we said, if they're going to 3 hours for each show, you've got to have more matches, and it's nice to kind of have another title to work with there, knowing that, as we mentioned, the world heavyweight women's title has been all about Rhea and Liv for how many months now? Io's got an opportunity, but when's that match going to happen? And so it's all those kind of things, but I still think Tiffany needs the WWE Women's title, and I think it needs to come from Nia, and I think that's where you can set up something with Charlotte Flair, perhaps at WrestleMania 41. You can do that match, because that seems like the biggest one. If you're going to kind of take Tiffany to that next level, that would be a great chance to do that. But if Charlotte beats her, that's also would not be the best thing maybe for this. So, hey, appreciate you hopping in. Glad you guys are jumping in here. Some of you I know jumping in a little bit late, but hey, you can go back and watch the replay on this. So here's a great question. Let me find this one. I saw this one somewhere. Let me scroll back to him. Do I think they'll advertise the McMahon documentary during Raw? I'm going to say no. I don't think they're going to advertise the Vince McMahon documentary on Raw. So, once they get to Netflix, I think they're just going to let that one be, is my guess. But I did wind up watching that full thing. I know I started doing some of the reviews here. I only did one episode, but it was hard to review in terms of like a review form, because there was so much stuff in there that I think a lot of people probably already knew, but I just didn't get a lot of new information from it. It was interesting to kind of go back and just see kind of the timeline for Vince McMahon throughout the years, but really outside of probably the last episode or so was a lot of the new, allegation stuff. But yeah, I just didn't. I tried to do. I even recorded a couple videos for like episode 2 and 3, but I was like, I just don't like these. That they just were not my thing, and so. But I would say if you haven't watched it, watch it. It's probably worth your time, but not a lot of new stuff. I like just a lot of the old 80s stuff. I always like seeing the old 80s footage. That's my thing. So I appreciated that. But all right, so here we go. From Frontline Sean here. Seth is going to snap, being the Punk help Roman, win War Games. I mean, I think Seth becomes interesting too, because I would not mind Seth Rollins, attacking Punk and going full on heel Seth Rollins, but I think too that's where, like with Triple H, it's he likes kind of having the shades of gray sometimes, where is Seth Rollins, he's sort of in that Kevin Owens role, right? And it's where, is Seth Rollins really wrong for attacking CM Punk? Just like, is Kevin Owens really wrong for attacking Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes based on what he said and what, they've kind of done? And so I think, if it's Rollins, he would have every reason to be pissed off at Punk. He's already his, big rival, and now he goes and teams with Reigns after Rollins made it clear he would never do such a thing. And remember too, Rollins said he would never do that. But then Solo and company cost him the match against Bronson Reed. And so Rollins never had the opportunity to be able to officially, pull his name out of the hat, basically. He said before, he's like, I will never do this, but could that have changed things, right? After what Solo and company did to him in that main event on Raw. But Rollins never had a chance because Punk inserted himself into things after via Paul Heyman. But that could give, Rollins another reason to be pissed off at Punk. So many ways you can do this. But yeah, Rollins versus Punk, it's happening. And I'm most curious to see, do we get that big, memorable first segment tomorrow night on Raw where Punk comes out, he's ready to declare, hey, McIntyre slowed me down, this War Games thing, but now it's time. Gunther, get your ass out here. I want the World Heavyweight Championship. Rollins attacks him. You get kind of a big hot start to the show. Possibility, I suppose. So we'll see what happens there. All right, good question here. Who do you see dethroning Cody? For me, I think it'll be The Rock, since I don't think Rock should lose to anyone besides Roman. And that's where I mentioned, I didn't go as far as saying it a minute ago, but when I said Rock and Cody would be interesting, my first thought was the reaction would be very interesting if The Rock beats Cody, because I think that would be something, to say the least, because it's not like The Rock's going to be out defending the championship, night in and night out or anything. That's not going to happen. But, like you said, Rock should not lose to anyone other than Roman. And I would tend to agree with that. I think that, if you're going to give Roman that sort of career-defining win, it's against The Rock. It is, that scenario where they finally have the one-on-one match. And in that spot, if Roman doesn't beat The Rock in the one-on-one match, then I don't know what you're going to close up shop here, because that's the most easy layup type finish to a match you could ever have, with Roman beating The Rock. But I think that, this is one where with Cody, and I've seen people wonder, like, is one of the surprises they have cooking up here, could it be Kevin Owens beating Cody for the championship? Saturday night's main event. Do something shocking like that. I don't think so, because again, I think that Randy Orton would probably be the next biggest choice, in my opinion, to beat Cody for the title. But it's got to be one of those two, right? I think it's the Rock or it's Orton. I think it's one of those two. But I like the way they built up Owens, though, to make him in the spot. But I think that's where Orton comes back. They do something there. But it's probably one of your two options here. I don't think it's Roman, but it's Orton or Rock. I think have to probably be one of the choices here. So yeah, we'll see. So all right, let's see what else we got here for sure. So Calvin brings up a good point here. I think they're going to lose the older generation because they don't know how to use Netflix like me. Not trying to be funny, but no, you're right. Like I mean, it is something we laugh about, but it's true. Where there is there is a generation out there that, I mean, Netflix is not their thing, right? And so you watch it on cable, and that's the thing. Like, we're in the era of streaming, but how many people, and I see the numbers, they put out the reports on how streaming numbers have gone, or how, traditional cable numbers keep going down and all that, but they keep going down, but they're not zero, right? There's still a lot of people who are just watching it either through cable or through like a direct TV, something like that here in the States. So like, it's the same services that have been there forever. Like, like YouTube TV, places like that, they're booming, right? The business is booming there for those guys, but you still have a lot of people who are used to watching it on USA, and boom, that's it. Like, that's all you have to do. You turn on USA, you're there. That's it. I've been doing it for years, right? And so, yeah, like, jumping to Netflix will be something a little bit different. And that's why they have to load things up. They have to make sure. I mean, listen, would anyone be shocked? This is WWE, where they walk you through every step and they will hit you over the head to make sure you know exactly what you need to do. Like, I am fully expecting like an Alpha Academy segment or something on Raw a couple weeks, leading up to the Netflix debut, where like they are sitting there holding a remote, and they are walking you through the steps to sign up for Netflix and all this other stuff. Like, I'm fully expecting that. So they're going to make sure that everyone knows how to sign up for Netflix, because otherwise, you don't want to leave that to chance there. So, but we'll see. Yeah, by the way, too, Dejar brings it up here, too. Yeah, the Paul Heyman favor. So, like, it goes both ways. They kind of push that with Punk and Heyman. It's going to go both ways here. So, we're going to see kind of how this plays out between those two. That's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. All right, a couple more things, guys, and I'm going to hop off here. We try to keep it under an hour. I'll do that here. But Corey says Rock versus Cody never made sense to him. Definitely should be Rock versus Roman. That would be my choice. I would be more interested in that one because you guys know my thoughts on that is the longer you wait on Rock versus Roman, the better chance it's never going to happen because the Rock's only getting older from here. And so I would rather get Rock versus Roman to make sure we actually do the match and get it over with, and actually get the match before Rock has to never wrestle again or whatever. But I can see why they want to do Cody. I can. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I think you're not the only one who thinks that KO beating Cody at Saturday Night's Main Event would be awesome. But I'm with you. I don't know if it's going to happen. They built it up to make you think it can, but I think Orton somehow gets involved there either after the match or whatever. But a lot of ways they can go. So. Yeah, but G Swell says here too, disappointed when The Rock didn't show up. Yeah, you weren't the only one. But we said earlier, I think he's, they'll get him back in the picture, bring him back on Netflix. Then we make it very clear at that point. Is The Rock going to be at WrestleMania 41? Is he going to be interacting with Cody, Reigns, whatever? I think we will know exactly what it's going to look like here in a month. So, yeah, we'll get there with that. So, all right, guys, I'm going to hop off here. I appreciate you joining. I know we kind of, we took this all over the place, started a Survivor Series reaction, but this is what we like to do with the live streams. And again, if you're joining in the first time, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button as well. I told you guys, got lots of more content coming here. I'm going to try to get back into the groove. I mentioned I have a newborn and all that, so we just kind of been doing the reaction videos, sometimes live, sometimes recorded. Try to get back to doing, sort of the single topic type videos we were doing, talking about the Bloodline and some other stuff as well. And again, I hope I can get some retro content for you guys. I've already made a couple videos. I just want to get them up. I want to see if you like them because I really get into some of the stuff. And one of them that I'm going to do for you guys, I've already started to actually record some of it, is my top 10 favorite wrestlers of all time. And I think that would be a fun discussion to have with you guys because we don't get to talk about those kind of things a lot here. We just react to what's happening now. But I'm going to give you my list and count it down, my top 10 all-timers. So we should have fun with that one, I think. But again, guys, I appreciate you watching as always. And again, the support, awesome. We hit 11,000 subscribers. Can't thank you enough. A lot more fun stuff on the way here on the channel. So thanks as always for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon at Wrestling Reaction.